All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 51 of the Samurai Brothers podcast. And Matthew, we have some things going on. It's kind of a dead week, or an off week, I should say, for One Piece. So there's no new chapter out. Supposed to be a new chapter coming next week, but in the meantime, I finally did go and watch the Naked Gun movie starring Liam Neeson. So Matthew and I will be reviewing that today. So just as a warning to everyone that we are going to talk about spoilers. So if you want to skip ahead, you can try and do so. And then we're going to talk about, Matthew, something you wanted to touch on, which was the Paramount deal with UFC. And then if we have some time later, just maybe talk about some current events with One Piece. So, Matthew, let's get right into it. The Naked Gun movie, starring Liam Neeson and Pamela Anderson as the hero and the heroine of the show. And they got a couple of other people to get in there as well. And as we know, this is supposed to be kind of a reboot, but also a sequel, so to speak.
The term legacy sequel is used a lot nowadays for.
Yeah. So to start things off, I guess the movie opens with a bank robbery happening, and the robbers are stealing something called the plot device.
Yes, the literal plot device.
Yeah. So that
it's like I saw that and I just started laughing in the theater. And the guy next to me who was older, he was started chuckling as well. We were just like, oh my gosh, could they have been more obvious?
Yeah. So then there's that. But then as the police have the bank surrounded, there's this little girl that just skips her way into the bank, and the robbers point their guns at her and they ask, "Who are you?" But then when she rips the mask off, it's actually Liam Neeson, aka Frank Drebin Jr. And obviously we get our first taste of all the slapstick shenanigans going on. Now the lead bank robber does get away, but there was some amusing things we saw that I saw in there with that. Obviously, I think the one that kind of got me the most out of when Frank Drebin Jr. is trying to stop the bank robbery is that what do they call that? The handshaking thing with the one guy.
Yeah.
And then he does this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now after that, we get into how obviously the chief is not too happy. She's not too happy with Frank. And police squad is going to get shut down. So then we get into how the funny one that I thought about was, and it was in the trailer too, was how Frank kneels before Frank Drebin, played by the legendary
Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah. And then the guy who plays his partner, I forget the Frank Drebin Sr.'s partner in the original series, but obviously his son is there. And I guess there's all these sons and daughters whose parents served on the police squad. But I like how the obvious poke at just culture in general is the fact that they have the picture of OJ, who played Nordberg in the original series, but his son just has this look on his face. So
and he literally goes, nah.
Yeah, an obvious poke at the realities of the movie is kind of aware of all the events that happen, because I think the last movie, the third movie, came out in either 93 or 94, and I know that
I think it came out like right before the OJ trial.
Yeah, with all the stuff going on there, I'm sure that
yeah, because OJ was in that last movie.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was indeed. So yeah, Matthew, just kind of to up until this point, your thoughts on how it was going so far.
I thought that it had it had done a good job in, like, trying to blend like modern movie trends with kind of the slapstick of the original. It was one of those things where it's like they wanted to pay homage to the original, but that um like the straight on parody genre had I think lost steam in the like late 90s, and then it became
It kind of made
degenerated it degenerated into what the Scary Movie franchise became, where it was like over the top, ridiculously stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of had to work ways into like reintroducing the audience to that parody drama. Yeah, the parody genre in a way that would make sense to the modern moviegoer.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think they did a pretty good job. And yeah, the movie, it was just, I think they kind of had to make the point of, yeah, we can't really. It's like OJ's not a very popular guy right now. We can't really use him as a um him or his descendants as any kind of a character.
Yeah.
As funny as he was, because it's one of those things where he actually was pretty good as a character of Nordberg. It's just that, unfortunately,
Yeah.
he
Unfortunately, the circumstances outside of the movie draws and will continue to draw, negative attention to him as a real life person.
right. Yeah, it's one of those things where his legacy's, yeah. Anyways, but yeah, it was I like up until that point, I think they were doing well. The entire movie they were doing a pretty good job, but up until that point, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, this is how things are progressing. This is good.
Yeah.
We're getting it.
So to make sure we don't go too long on this, I'll speed through this. Frank Drebin does get caught in an investigation about a supposed suicide of someone who drove into a ravine. They're an employee of a tech guru, um, Richard Kane, and so now they're trying to investigate. And Frank Drebin does meet a this victim's sister, Beth Davenport, played by Pamela Anderson. And again, more shenanigans. One of the things I thought was crazy, they really stocked up, during and I noticed it happened during the first maybe quarter to half of the movie, was how there was all these coffee jokes. It's like they're all drinking coffee. Frank's, while he's driving, gets mysteriously handed a new cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And then it's like, there's just coffee all over these desks or all in the trash, and just amazing how that goes. But they've got when he's looking through the window, and Beth is supposedly standing, and she looks all pretty, very nice, well-rounded, person. But then when he
Oh,
opens the door, it's the the coat rack. And I think there was a broom sticking out, wasn't there?
yeah.
Anyway, so with that being said, obviously Drebin tries to investigate Richard Kane, because Richard Kane's got he has an evil plot in mind to try and try to get rid of people in a way. And he's obviously devising with all these other leaders and stuff like that. And then as we get through to everything, obviously Kane is trying to kill Drebin. Also, when they're Drebin tries to go to Kane's club that he runs, and we've got Beth Davenport doing some. What was it? It sounded like it was like scat and all that.
Yeah, she was scatting.
Singing.
Yeah, she was scatting.
Which I don't know if that was her specifically. If you know, if Pamela was actually doing that, I'd say that was pretty something. You know.
Yeah.
Be able to do that.
If she wasn't doing that, then the lip syncing was done
pretty good acting,
very well.
Yeah. So with that being said,
Scatman John came to mind.
Yeah. So let me see here. Yeah, and then obviously Frank and Beth go on a romantic, getaway and all that stuff, which got a little bit cringe in my mind. But that was that way in the first 3 movies too, those type of
yeah, it was one of those things where it's just like, huh?
Yeah.
They did have a tendency to go off the rails with that stuff between Leslie Nielsen and Priscilla Presley.
Yeah. Let me see here. And then just to kind of, so they are able to find Richard Kane's henchman and get a confession out of him. And, obviously the reveal about the plot device that's going to be driving everyone crazy and all that. So
I forget what the name is, but plot is
primordial law of toughness. I'm looking at the wiki right now. I mean, so with that being said, so then they find out where Richard Kane is going to activate the device, and so they have to go to the Ponzi scheme arena. PonziScheme.com arena, which obviously I think that's a parody of
the Crypto.com arena.
Yeah, Crypto.com arena.
Which we used to know as the Staples Center.
Yeah, I think to us it's always going to be like the Staples Center,
yeah,
sort of thing. And then Drebin does find the device. Obviously with a little bit more toilet humor in there, and then obviously your favorite part of the movie, which was that what was the name of the fighting organization? I think it was like WWFC, I think.
Yeah, so they were hybriding it between WWF and UFC.
Yeah. And obviously, Bruce Buffer made a cameo there, and so did
Michael Bisping and John Anik made cameos.
And also, don't forget, what's his name? Big John
McCarthy.
Yeah. Yep.
And they also and in the bar scene, Cody Rhodes was in it.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until I watched the end credits that his name was in there, and I'm thinking, man, they really got him. They really did a great job with having him in there like that. I was impressed.
Yeah, that was one of those really sneaky cameos.
Yeah. And then obviously they got Dave Bautista in there as well. And then
that was an interesting cameo.
So in the end, Richard Kane does get the plot device activated, but Drebin does stop it. And then they do chase after Kane. They catch up to him. They have a fight, and then he gets arrested. But the events leading up to the
he gets taken out by one punch to the stomach.
Yeah. Also,
he never practiced taking a punch.
Yeah. Also, Frank does get an assist from his father in the spirit form of an owl, because he was asking his dad to send him a sign. Like an owl or something. So yeah, a lot of. So in the end, they stopped.
There was a Priscilla Presley cameo.
Yeah, I couldn't really figure out where that was. Although I did hear that
it was when Frank was butt naked, and I think they were censoring it, but she's just like, "Oh my gosh, my son is butt naked."
Yeah, that was another that reminded me a lot of like Crayon Shin-chan with that TV show. That's like,
that kind of humor.
Yeah, that kind of humor. Yeah. Although, what was it? I was watching Critical Drinker, and he made note that the comedy and the jokes kind of started teetering off in the, the latter half of the movie. It's like, yeah, okay, everything is funny, and then it's starting to not become funny, which I think it kind of does that in the other movies too. You know, these movies, it's like the kind of the comedy, the jokes start becoming not funny after a while.
Probably probably either halfway or in the third act.
Yeah. So anyway, so in the end, police squad is saved, and you know, Frank keeps his job and he begins a relationship with Beth Davenport, and the end. But with one thing that I would like to, an honorable mention, is that we did see our favorite musical comedian in the movie, Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah, in the post-credit scene.
Well, but he also made the scene when he was also in there when they were doing the that round table with all the bad guys.
Right.
Yeah. And so I would have to make a mention that Weird Al Yankovic I think, is officially the only person that's made a appearance in all 4 movies.
Yeah, they were always cameos, but it was kind of one of those Easter eggs, and yeah, he was. You know, Weird Al looks very good for. Isn't he in his 60s?
Yeah, he's in his 60s. I think he's in his mid 60s now.
He's like our parents. He aged like a fine wine.
So with that being,
he never did any. Well, like our parents, he never did any like major drinking, smoking, drugs, stuff like that.
Yeah,
and took good care of himself, and you know, the result is he's looking very well. So
yeah. So I think.
I would like to point out is that when they started the credit scene, they did get in the traditional siren,
yes,
doing the nonsensical stuff.
Yeah, I think that I'd been kind of expecting that in the beginning of the movie, but I think it was nice that they made it.
Yeah, I was expecting. Yeah, I was expecting it too, but again, it was probably one of those things where they again because this is a long sequel,
trying to differentiate it,
right? And then people, you know, it's like only those who were familiar with it, which would be our age. There's been like, I mean, it's been like what 30 years since the last movie. That's a long
because the last movie came out in '94.
There's literally 30-year-old people who have no idea what this is. They're seeing it because of Liam Neeson, essentially. So you have to kind of introduce them in a way, because if they all of a sudden see the siren going through in the opening credits, they're like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
So I really liked the, I think it was 33 1/3 was the one where as he's going through, they do the trench run in Star Wars.
Mm.
I always just found that funny.
So yeah, with that being said, so you know, I thought I'll give my thoughts, and then Matthew, if you want to give your thoughts. I thought it was it was a good callback. You know, I like that you know, I think it was written in a good way. Obviously, I'm not going to call it the greatest movie of the year or anything like that, but it was good to get a chuckle in, you know. And again, it's a nice callback to the movies of old, you know, in that particular style. Again, a little over the top with some of the, you know, adult humor. So, you know, I'm not, you know, like this is not something I would just show to kids, you know, right off the bat. In fact, you know, I know mom would like be disgusted by this movie, to be honest. So, you know,
was she even able to watch any of the original movies?
I don't think so. I don't think
so.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, that's my thoughts about it. So Matthew?
Yeah, it's one of those movies where I think it did make a good tribute, as most legacy sequels go, because we've seen a lot of legacy sequels that were. So I would say it was decent. That's the best way we can put it, is that it was a decent movie. Yeah, not the best movie of the year. If I'm probably not going to be nominated for any Academies, let alone win any, but it was done in a good way in which it was a tribute to the original. And Well, and then a funny thing, I actually did some math, and it actually mathematically would make sense. Not, I think timeline wise, it's supposed to take place in either the 70s or the 80s. No, not this one. The previous one.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, like 33 and 1/3. It seemed like it had kind of that type of vibe. I think it mathematically Leslie Nielsen could have been Liam Neeson's father. That's the point I was trying to make. So it's done in such a way that it's believable. So, and I'd say it was a pretty good movie. I'm glad I watched it on a $5 Thursday at a local theater, but I think I got my money's worth. So.
Okay. Yep. So that was the Naked Gun review. And so now, Matthew, we'll get into a big subject here, and perhaps you can brief our audience on what's going on with the Paramount signing deal with the UFC. So take it away.
Okay, so what happened was I think it was last week, probably. Yes. So August 11th, it was reported that after months of speculation, because the UFC's deal with ESPN ends at the end of this year, after months of speculation, it was confirmed that the UFC, instead of going to Netflix like some had speculated, will in fact be going to Paramount Plus. And it's twice as much. It's going to be twice as much annually as the ESPN deal was. Whereas the ESPN deal was about $600 million a year, this is going to be $1 billion, over $1 billion a year for 7 years.
7 years, wow, that's a pretty something.
And as part of this deal, the UFC is going to exit the pay-per-view market.
Yes, I had heard about that. That there's no longer going to be pay-per-views.
Yeah. So long story short, pay-per-views. There are some pay-per-view formats or companies that are doing well with pay-per-views. UFC is not losing money, but at this point, it's not. Basically, it's not really worth the
It had it plateaued. Is that what happened?
It's plateaued. Yeah, we're not seeing any record making. As much as I hate to say it, because I don't really like the guy, the Conor McGregor era was pretty much the peak of the UFC record breaking era. Mm-hmm. So with him essentially out of the mark, he's not interested in coming back. That's just the fact of the matter, is that he's not interested in coming back. So and even with the number of losses he's incurred in the latter part of his career, he's still a big money named person. So yeah, basically it's plateaued. We're not seeing any record-breaking pay-per-views anymore. So, and with this amount of money, the idea of a pay-per-view has pretty much become moot. Now, they're still going to be doing the numbered events as basically like your big once-a-month event. They'll probably still do like title fights at those numbered events, but the pay-per-view, aside from what Dana White said will be one time, like one-offs, maybe once every year, every 2 years perhaps, it's it's not going to the UFC's and exiting the pay-per-view market at this point. It used to be the blood of the sport, but the fact of the matter is, at this point, with a deal like this, there's not really a point in doing this anymore. Because here's the thing, that's just from what they're getting from Paramount. That doesn't include their personal sponsors, their merchandise sales, and whatever other the subscriptions through UFC Fight Pass. That's gonna be 1 billion plus anything else they make.
Now, kind of go into about how has UFC Fight Pass subscriptions been doing over the years?
Enough to make the company money.
Have they been trending upwards still?
It's well, so here's the thing. UFC Fight Pass is that basically you can watch the entire, so the UFC, so while all the main stuff that basically all of like the current events and stuff like that, that's and I think the entire Ultimate Fighter library. So ESPN Plus has been where a select amount of the UFC library has been. It's not the entirety of the UFC library, or for that matter, like the Pride FC library or the Strike Force library, or the fight libraries of the other promotional assets that the UFC has bought, or the regional fight circuit, like Legacy Fighting Alliance or Cage Fury Fighting Championships, or some of like the unofficial feeder leagues. At one point, UFC Fight Pass had Shuto and Pancrase. I don't know if they still have those anymore, but it's been more of something for like the traditional fight fans, and in that regard, it has been making money. And I think when they first started, like the Fox deal, for example, they actually did have the Fox deal is where I describe basically the UFC being the most bloated in terms of fight cards, because they had fight cards every single weekend. And sometimes they'd have multiple per weekend, where they'd have one on one of the Fox networks, and then they'd have one that was regional on UFC Fight Pass. Like they'd have one in like China, or one in like somewhere in Central Asia in a former Soviet Republic or something like that. It was beyond it basically basically while the UFC was on Spike, the thought was, oh, we can't get enough UFC. When you're getting it literally every single weekend, there became a such thing as fatigue. It's like I didn't have access to cable at the time, and I was just like, I'm glad I don't, because I can't watch much UFC.
Yeah, that's true.
And even nowadays, I'll take advantage of the Fight Pass, and I'll just look at, okay, I'll like be like, okay, let's look at some of the exciting fights and the finishes, and that's about it. So
well, yeah, that's an interesting way that it's.
But also of note is the fact that this is kind of the UFC coming home in a way, because Spike was a Paramount company channel, a Paramount company network. So this is essentially the UFC coming home from Fox, ESPN, back to Paramount. It's not the exact same thing. It's not going to be on the Paramount network, which is what Spike used to be, but it's they're back, they're based, which I noticed a lot. I've only seen like one other commentator talk about the fact, which is like I think it's MMA on Point. He's the only they are the only MMA outlet who's talked about the fact that this is the UFC coming home, essentially. So but yeah, it is interesting. We'll see what happens. And the thing is, I already pay for Paramount Plus. It's $13 a month. So, and I already watch Star Trek on there, because that's where the Star Trek and like a few other series as well. So this is just like, oh well, I'll just add it. It's like I just get more bang for my buck in that regard. So,
yep. Also, so that's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. With what's happening. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to Richie Miranda in the LFA because he successfully, Richie Miranda is the current champion in the lightweight division of the LFA, and he is an alumni of Santa Ana College, and he successfully defended his title on Friday. So congrats to Richie El Machete, as they call him. So and he and I have talked about how he wants to be in the UFC, obviously. So hopefully.
Well, the LFA is one of several feeder leagues of the UFC. So it's very possible to that he'll make it up there at some point. Just a matter of time. And maybe the UFC Contender Series is going on right now. Maybe he might get called up for a Contender Series fight.
Yeah.
The Contender Series is basically a tryout for the UFC. It started on the 12th. It's in the 8th season. Basically, they've got like 2 or 3 months where these fighters will go on a Tuesday night, typically, to the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, and they'll fight. And Dana White will award between 1 to. There's been times where he's awarded contracts to not just the winners, but like one of the losers who like showed that he was willing to really go. So we'll see. I mean, he's in a good spot.
Yeah, he is. So that being said, obviously, so that's how we're seeing with the Paramount deal. So again, I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going. So Matthew, just kind of some things about in our off week, Onepiece. And I think there's a lot of fan theories floating out. And I think probably the one that's floating out there the most is how the God Valley incident is caused by that somehow the world government captured Shakuyaku from Fololed Island and took her there, and that it ends up being an all-out war over the Rocks Pirates trying to get her back, and maybe somehow that the Roger Pirates also heard that she's there, so they're going as well. We do have a couple minutes still, but you had mentioned about another theory about why God Valley happened. So, if you want to elaborate.
So I've been seeing that fan theory going around, and I kind of have to agree with Grand Line Review in this how I look at it this way. If that had been the case, we would not have probably wouldn't have seen an alliance between Garp and Roger.
And Roger.
The thing probably would have been that Roger and
Rocks
would have partnered together in order to free Shaki. So, and then on top of that, the blitz to God Valley didn't start until Ginny wired it out. And Ginny didn't say that Shaki was one of them. She said that there's these treasures, which a lot of them were devil fruits, that are up for grabs. So if Shaki was on God Valley, I don't think she was the catalyst. And again, the Jenny put out a general call so that there was enough chaos to where she, Ivankov, and Kuma could escape. So I might be wrong, but I don't think that's the primary reason why God Valley happened.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. I do have to say though, the fact that, could it be that actually, because everyone, in the One Piece world talks about how Boa Hancock is the most beautiful person in the world, but maybe it is Shakuyaku that, her beauty and the fact that, Boa has got the middle no mi on her side, but Shakuyaku was all natural in the terms of she didn't have a devil fruit pack. So.
Yeah. Well, and someone pointed this out, is that the comparison to Aidoru is very similar in that, Aidoru in Japan, once they get into a more adult relationship, guys stop simping after them.
Yeah.
It's like they'll still have an audience, but they won't be viewed as like this an eligible bachelor, woo-hoo-hoo, simping time type person. So the theory is that, Shakuyaku, it might have happened when she ended up with, of course, with the one man who didn't seem to want her.
Yep.
I'd still like to see how that happened exactly.
Yeah, hopefully we will see that. So with that being said, our time is now running short, but Matthew, we're going to have a mega episode next week because the Banzuke will be out, new chapter of One Piece, and we're just going to kind of see how things are progressing in life, and we'll go it from there. So with that being said, I want to again thank everyone for watching us, and we'll be back with episode 52 next week on the Samurai Brothers. So until then, take care and have a great week.